Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Clarity in Action. I'm your host, Clara Capano. Let's talk growth. We all grow. From when we're, babies to adults, even in our careers. And what we know about growth is it can be uncomfortable. It can also cause a lot of confusion and a lot of fear. And many times when we're going through cycles of growth, we tend to think it's about us. Something is wrong with us. Why are things not working? So to help debunk the myth of things not being wrong with us, but that growth just being a part of the movement we want to greatness, I have my friend Quinn here, and we are going to talk about this. We're going to go through it, and we're going to give you some tips and tricks to go ahead and get that momentum moving forward so that you can grow with grace. So Quinn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Clara, I'm so excited to be on. I love what you're doing. I love the mission you're moving, and I love the impact you're having. And I couldn't be more aligned with clarity is currency for you. I call it clarity is king for me as far as coaching. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Yeah, you and I, we talked offline, and one of the things I love so much is not just the fact that we're in alignment, but, you talk about this mission movement. And what we have to understand is all of us have a mission to impact lives, to lead, whatever it is. To get that mission from thought in our brain to actually in purpose takes a lot of work. And oftentimes, when we're going through all these, we're so critical on ourselves. And I would love to, have you kind of talk a little bit about how you work with your people to get them through their movement of their mission. And when they hit those points of growth where they start to, again, really be hard on themselves, how do you talk them out of that?
Well, I wish I could talk people out of stuff, but at the core of coaching, it's about them being explored and vulnerable and open and exploring their own selves and coming to conclusions. The journey of a mission mover is so powerful to me because, yeah, we all have a God calling or a higher calling to move a mission, and in that we struggle. There's a lot of noise. And so helping mission movers clear through that noise is a powerful concept. So what I find is very valuable in coaching people through it is helping them be aware of where they're stuck and helping them where they're stagnant. Because often they find themselves in a situation where they know the symptoms they're experiencing, but they don't really have clarity on what the pain point really is, or what I would call where the real growth gap is.
Mm-hmm.
So coaching through with people, you help them identify really where that growth gap is. And that really helps them see they don't have to internalize it. So many times in coaching, people get self-condemning, self-critical, perfectionists. We're talking to an audience on the call who are high performers. They're highly driven. If they're listening to personal growth, they're high driven people. So helping coach through and allow them to be aware of where that growth gap is, that it's not all about them and their failures, but it's about where that growth exists so they can gain clarity and gain confident action. It's a powerful transformation part, Claire.
It is. One of the things that I notice is, and the big word right now is scalable. People want to make their businesses scalable, which means you have to grow, you have to change. But the reality is a lot of them don't want to do the work to actually have to get the change because that is uncomfortable. So what are some of maybe the key areas that you're noticing where people maybe hold back from doing the work that is going to help them grow?
One of the most powerful ways, and this really came up in a recent coaching session, it's a senior level, team member of a good sized company. And he was wrestling with his role or space within the company. And he had performed well. There was some ambiguity that was happening. And what we identified with it was like a identity gap. So there was a revisited identity gap of who he was, where he was working, the value he brought to the team, the organization, where he felt impact or significance. And so helping him explore or come to the clarity that, it's not a me issue. It's not that I'm just not motivated or driven or I'm lacking energy or lethargy, which was coming upon him. It was, wait a second, the real core issue that we coached through was, hey, we're not really clear on this new identity, where you're at the season in life, and how do you do that? So we got up some homework and we worked through the clarity really came from how does he really want to reframe his identity and how he's going to find that within the workplace, within the culture. So it was pretty powerful. And so he left with some good homework. And actually, it's pretty recent. So I'm excited to see what he comes up with and the changes that happen in his life and comes forward from it.
I'm really glad that you brought that up about our role, because I think that this is an area where people do lack a lot of clarity. They don't understand what their role is in their organization. They might say, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, I'm the visionary, whatever it is, but they haven't really sat down and written out what is my job description. That's why they get stuck investing so much time in areas that they really should not be investing in. I would love to have you talk a little bit about one of the areas that I think you have to understand if you're going to grow. You also have to let go. And that's really, really hard for people to do, especially if they're entrepreneurs or they founded the company. How do you coach people to understand that letting go is actually powerful and also a necessity?
Letting go of the vine. And so that's a
Mhm.
key component of actually navigating through entrepreneurialism, ownership, leadership. So coaching through that is a difficult conundrum because we do resist change and we do want control. And so coaching through people or having them kind of navigate themselves and what's really holding them back from letting go, where the real fear is, where the real underlying belief, where's the belief barrier that's preventing them from letting go of this, and helping them visualize what it would look like if they did let go of it, helping them visualize what possibilities could come forth in other people's growth if they let go of the vine, so to speak. So once they come to a revelation that this not letting go is creating a little more emotional turmoil than they need, and that's a long journey for a lot of people, Clara. But once
Mhm.
they can get that, they can let go of roles and responsibilities. They can fill out, call their org chart, accountability chart. And all of a sudden, things open up and performance wise on the team.
Yeah.
The second thing I noticed too, a little bit, Claire, is that within the context of team, it's more of a sports analogy. If you're not clear in your identity and your role you play on a team, like in professional sports was my background, what happens is that people get unsettled, they get unstable, they get unsure how and what role they play within the context of that team. So what happens is they never play with a full bold confidence. They always play with this measure of self-doubt or uncertainty. They don't play
Mhm.
big. And what happens is performance lags, performance drags, results, and people also notice, like, wait a second, my bottom line's suffering. Well, let's go back to the identity you have within that role and the identity your people have on your team. And are they whole with how they view themselves in the role they play on the team? So it's a powerful layer. And just coached that through recently with another business owner. And it was a game changer on how things opened up for her and her team on performance wise
Awesome.
after that became clear.
Yeah. So let's talk about growth and communication, because when you are growing, you're having all these internal dialogues with yourself and you sort of see it, but you also have to communicate this new vision and this new direction to your team, regardless if you have a company of one or 1,001. But that's going to cause change for them too. And I'm seeing this right now with the company that I'm working with. They're going from, having maybe 350 people to now having about 1,300 people. And they have to start operating for the company they are becoming, not the company that they were. And there's a lot of upheaval because people just don't understand. So, talk about how you would coach a leader through communication and what are some of the best ways to communicate the vision, what's happening, their role, all that good stuff. And also, maybe even doing it for the different generations.
Yeah, the generation, Claire, is so motivated by mission, vision, and values. I mean, Harris
Mhm.
Poll still will take $10,000 less of a job just because they want to be connected to mission, vision. People are disengaged at work at a high rate, almost 75%, because they're not connected to the mission, vision. So, what I've seen as far as communication goes, when you have that kind of scaling, is clarity of communication. And what I call it is 2020 vision. How do you present clear 2020 vision to your team, to the people you lead? So this was a recent thing. I went through it personally when I was running and operating a lot of multi-million dollar gym facilities. I worked in the fitness industry for a number of years. What I found was there was a disconnect on the layers of communication. And the farther you go up the communication chain, the more clear you have to become so people know what to do, how to do it, and they're not kind of second guessing the emotion from it. They're clear on it. So what we coach through is having to establish a clear vision. And so it's a co-creation process oftentimes. And so it could trickle down, but you're co creating what the vision is. Then you're
Mhm.
co creating what clear focus items are. And then you're co creating clear action steps that happen. And that sounds really simple in framework, but framework does bring confidence. But what happens is when you walk people through how to create vision and co create it with the people you lead, when you walk them through getting a common language, and then you walk them through action steps, it is a game changer. It was for me in my own leadership. All of a sudden, engagement went up, and performance went up, results went up. People stayed longer. They didn't want to leave the company because that communication got a little stronger. So establishing what I call is a phrase that pays. It's kind of that money marker. Like, what's the phrase that pays that's going to be the guiding light for your mission that you're leading? And
Yeah.
then go through what are the core values you'll have. And then let's go through and say the focus items. So there's a framework in there, Clara, but dang, it's a game changer for leaders. And the farther you go up, the higher, clearer your communication has to be.
So, what if, as you're doing this, it becomes apparent that some of the people on your team don't want the change?
Well, Clara, that's when you get into those savage conversations, right? And that's where you have to understand if someone's on your energy bus or if they're off the energy bus. And you have to have clarity as you as a leader on what your standards you hold, what you won't hold. And if you're doing consistent feedbacking and growth, you'll either find that people are going to align to it, or they're going to just be like, tap out, like, I'm done, get me out of here. Or you're going to have to say, hey, look, it's just time for you to go.
Yeah. It's so hard to do, especially when you had people that have been with you. But this is where I always work with leaders to start getting them to understand it's about the health of the organization. You have to think about what is going to be the best for the organization and make sure that you have the right players in the right spot. And like you said, clearly communicating it. It's not that we want to get rid of people, but we have to make sure that we have the alignment. I think it's, Jim Collins who always said, get the right people on the bus. Otherwise, the bus is not going to be going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
I was recently coaching a business owner out in Arizona, and it was that a stagnant culture, tension points within the culture, and trying to navigate how to shift that. And they were a multi kind of operator, businesses. But in that, it came down to that: right people in the right seats doing the right thing. And once they made those bold, courageous, confident decisions, all of a sudden things shifted.
yeah.
Culture
So
shifted,
can you have some
results shifted.
examples of some bold, courageous steps that people have made?
Yeah. I think some of the joy I get, I coach at 3 layers, Claire. I get to coach life, I get to coach leadership, and I get to coach business. And in it, if I'm combining all three, I can really help people reach their potential.
Mhm.
But what I found is bold steps usually come from people getting clarity on what their dreams, goals, and mission really is. So
Mhm.
I've had people that have started businesses who have left corporate roles and actually got clarity on what their true passion and mission was and started businesses out of that. That's powerful. They didn't just sit in the world of comfort or status quo. They get dug deep to what their vision and goals are. They broke through barriers and they went for it. And there's definitely a group on this call that probably feels like that. They're listening, they want personal growth, their uncertainty, but they know there's something more they're called for. But having clarity, which I say leads to convictions, which leads to confidence, is part of their journey to break free and break out. So
Yeah.
that's the greatest joy I think I succeed in sharing with. And then you have corporate leaders who actually the joy of helping them coach through navigating up their career pathing and the skills and leadership skills. It's a joy to kind of coach people through that and deep dive into it.
It is. So, one of the things also with growth, and I think when people are looking to grow themselves, grow their business, there's also an investment that comes with it. And that sometimes is money, not just the time and the emotional bandwidth. And we don't always have the funds to do that. So what are some maybe places to start? How can we, shift it? Because we have to start again looking at it as an investment, not a cost, but you can't get different results doing things the same way. So if somebody is maybe struggling with a budget, how can they maybe start some of their first steps in getting this growth wheel going?
Money is always probably a concern, but money is always not a concern. Consumer pattern is we buy emotionally, we justify after we buy emotionally. To invest in yourself is one of the challenges I've seen, and you've probably seen it too, Claire. It's really hard for people to do that. For some reason, with their money diverted into family relationships, sports, events, to invest in themselves is probably one of the biggest barriers they have. But once they make a commitment at any level, all of a sudden things start to shift. They start to experience growth, enthusiasm, joy, a different sense of vibrancy in their life. So there's layers you can start with. You can start with podcasts, which you're listening today if you're on, and that can maybe help forward your growth process. You could start with like good books or good reading resources. Was grateful I just released the first book called Growth Time. It's about the clear path to unlock your best life in leadership. Something like that, which I would say, hey, that's a good grounding place. How do I grow in life and leadership so I can show up strong? There's resources. I know you've written some good bestsellers, Clara. There's resources people can start to get through into personal growth or professional growth. So you can start at any layer. Obviously, coaching is one of the most impactful transformational journeys someone can go through. Been through it, coach now in almost 6 years. It is a game changer in terms of people driving, overall fulfillment, success, and results.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to invest in yourself and, with the age of technology, we have so many opportunities that we didn't have even a decade ago to be able to help us. You can get connected in, online masterminds, sharing thoughts and, being able to work with all those. You talked a lot about the clarity of vision, really understanding that there is a quote from a gentleman named Robin Sharma that I love. And he says that change is scary at first, it's messy in the middle, and it's glorious at the end. And I think this can really relate to growth too. Growth can be very scary, and then, man, is it messy. But if we push through, it can be glorious. How do you talk to people, coach people through the messiness? Because that is not fun. And that is when most people just want to give up and retreat.
It's having the goal in sight, Clara. And it's just like fitness. I'm also a fitness junkie and enthusiast. So coaching through fitness or goals or results is typically keeping the end in mind and developing short-term goals so they don't get weary, they don't get discouraged, they don't get frustrated. If someone, as an extreme example, is 30 pounds overweight and you say you've got to lose this in a week, it's going to be a monumental pain point for them. So in the coaching journey, it's keeping people focused on the short-term goals that they've established, that they've created, that you've co-created with them, and bringing them into remembrance so they continue to feel like they're making positive movement. So they're not feeling frustrated, discouraged, down, self-condemning, harsh critic, which is judgmental critic within our own voices, is what we all wrestle with. Mm-hmm. So I find that to keep them focused on growth is keeping them clear on their higher vision and the higher goals that they've established in the coaching agreement. That's a game changer for a lot.
Yeah. I really like the fact that you said, have the vision, the long-term one, but then also take time to celebrate the smaller short-term ones, because it's so easy to look all the way down the road, which might be 4 or 5 years away. And then we can get discouraged. But being able to say, okay, what do we need to do in the next 90 days, the next week, and being able to celebrate that. I also see a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of visionaries, a lot of these leaders where it's never enough. They can win an award, they can be recognized, they can have a great month. And, you go to celebrate and they're like, yeah, but I'm not there yet. How do you bring them back to be like, okay, you can celebrate for a moment. We still have a long way to go, but it's okay to celebrate the small wins too, because sometimes they just don't want to. They just want to be pedal to the metal and grind it out. And it's never good enough. And I'll tell you that never good enough, it wears on their team too.
Well said, Claire. The achievement syndrome, let's call it, the constant pursuit of a mountain or unattainable ghost you're chasing, very challenging for high performance leaders. They have a hard time letting go of the vine to think that if I'm not trying to achieve, I'll quit, I'll give up, I'll have no energy. I won't be enough. I'm not enough if I give away this achievement part of it. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it does create a lot of tension points within team, heck, within relationships. It creates a lot of pain points, with people. So how do you navigate? It's probably the most powerful question I ask a client that usually sends them in a frenzy if they're in that situation. I'll jump on a coaching call and I'll say, Clara, hey, what are you most proud of yourself for this week? And it's so uncomfortable. It's so challenging for that person to go, oh, this is what I'm really proud of. Not the results. How are you proud of how you showed up? How are you proud of your character? Mm-hmm. And it is a pain sore. To feel that kind of self-affirmation is so foreign to so many performers. Mm-hmm. But when they feel that for a moment, you see a wave of their countenance change. You see this well of confidence come in them. And it's almost empowering, but it's so foreign to them. It's very comfortable to go back into the achievement syndrome.
Yeah, so good. I love that. Well, Quinn, you have given us a lot to think about. I really love how you talk about the touch points, again, reflecting on yourself, really getting connected with the vision, how we can communicate that. All of these are so important and so powerful. And I would love to ask you right now, because you're growing too. What is it that you are working on right now?
Claire, I'm working on what we're on here right now. I'm working on the opportunities to get out and speak, to get out the growth time message. As I said, it's a message I took 4 years in creating as my life took a tremendous casualty upturn in COVID, and I have my own mission moving journey. So if I could actually get the message of growth time out and talk to amazing people like you and share with your audience on things that will help them move their mission and get the message of growth time out, that's what I'm focused on. Getting
Love
out there and speaking and spreading the message.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully we can help you with that. We'll put your link to the book in the show notes, and everybody, give Quinn a follow because he is just sharing a lot of wisdom with us. And I have one last question for you before I let you go. And that is, sitting where you sit today, how do you define success for yourself?
My definition is, how am I changing the world I influence today? How am I changing the world I influence today?
So good. Because all we have is today, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's it, Clara. That's all we got. Might as well shoot our shot.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. I am excited to see what your next steps are, all the growth that you have, and I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. Thanks so much.